Okay. So is my screen visible to the audience?
Yes, Amit, I can see your screen. So one more thing I
Okay.
want to
Okay.
add during the session. Folks, we have muted everyone, and this we have intentionally so that there should not be any disturbance. And during the session, if anybody has any questions, I request everyone, please write your question in the question panel so that during the session, after the 20 or 30 minutes part of this presentation, Amit can read your questions and then he would be able to reply you. Yeah, Amit, you can proceed
Okay.
now.
Okay, Raj. Thanks a lot for organizing this session. I think this is a topic which is actually very dear to my heart. It constitutes a big part of what we have done at SlideShare, and we've been fortunate enough to kind of grow SlideShare to where it is today without spending a lot of marketing money. And that is what the topic for the webinar is. And for want of a better title, I just kind of drummed it up and I say, so this is this is how SlideShare got to 75 million unique visitors a month on a zero marketing budget. And at the start itself, let me kind of say that this is a set of learnings that we've had at SlideShare. This has worked in case of our product. I think that in terms of the takeaways for the audience, what I think would make more sense is for people to understand some of the concepts that are being talked about here, and then try to take those concepts back to what you are doing in your professional work and see how and where they can be applied. It is possible that everything that I tell you here may not be directly applicable, but the emphasis should be on understanding the concepts. And once you understand the concepts, I think you can, people are smart and they can figure out how to adapt it. So let me get started with this. And a little bit about SlideShare. I think people might know SlideShare, so I'll not talk much. But at SlideShare, what we are trying to do is we are trying to build the world's premier professional platform so that professionals are empowered through the use of knowledge. We started in 2006 and we got acquired by LinkedIn in 2012. And the acquisition was kind of a recognition of the fact that there is a lot in common between SlideShare and LinkedIn. SlideShare is a professional content platform and LinkedIn is a professional network, so there is a lot of synergy. And that synergy actually is what led to the acquisition. And I think one of the opening comments that I would like to make here is about the internet. And when I say the internet, my reference is to the ecosystem in which SlideShare exists, of which we are a part of. And we are all, we love this internet, right? So the internet came around in the late 90s, and since then, it's kind of grown into something which is all around us. It started, more in terms of a basic utilitarian way, going on to, take a more social DNA. And one of the things that you see on the internet, and the way I've captured it on this slide, is that the internet is a perpetual 24-hour free growth machine. And I must kind of emphasize these words. It's a perpetual 24-hour free growth machine. And I don't know whether it's visible, but I've actually put this line in all caps, and that is intentional because I want to underscore and make sure that people understand that the internet has a way of letting smart companies, smart startups grow on it, right? It's something that is like, it's happening all the time. And successful companies are those that kind of understand how the internet works in the context of their own user behavior and are able to tap into this growth machine. And I would say that at SlideShare we consider ourselves fortunate to have been able to do it. And I'm going to share a few of the things that I think we've done along the way. But think of of platforms like a Facebook, like a Twitter, a YouTube, SlideShare, I mean, most of these companies have not spent marketing money. That's just the hard reality. And you of course ask yourself this question: how is it possible to grow to such a size and scale without spending marketing money? And that's exactly the question that I'm trying to answer here. Okay, so let's move on from here. I think the core idea of growth on the internet is linked to what I call virality. And I'm going to use this word multiple times during the course of this. And I'll explain what this word means. So I'll talk about virality, talk about a few things that we did at SlideShare which kind of helped us go viral. So what is virality? And if you see this slide itself, you'll notice something, that there's something out there. There's a photograph in the backdrop which is actually showing a microscopic view of virus. And I think the word virality is kind of derived from viruses. And so basically virality refers to the ability of an object to self-replicate. And it may not be a great way of explaining it, but I think it is the best way of explaining it is that if you think of how viral diseases spread, and they spread from one person to another, and that's how they kind of fan out in a very, they fan out very fast. And so the concept of virality has to be seen in that light. And also worth mentioning that virality is a term which is kind of used and abused a lot. It's often used interchangeably with word of mouth, with marketing, with buzz. But I'd say that virality actually has a very specific meaning, and the meaning is exactly the way I explained it, is that it is the ability of an object to self-replicate. So what is virality with reference to web applications? So I think in case of startups and web apps, virality basically refers to a single-minded focus on acquiring new users. And I'd like to stop here for a second and kind of get people to think about this, that when you're talking of acquiring new users, what exactly does it mean? I think what it means is that you are essentially trying to increase the width of what you are doing. You're trying to get new people to try out what you are building. It is not necessarily a depth strategy. You're not trying to kind of have more usage of the same products. Instead of that, you're trying to have more and more people use what you are doing. So the distinction between width and depth, and if you understand that distinction, virality, targets width. It doesn't target depth. And how it does that is kind of, it's half art and half science. And it is kind of become fairly sophisticated now. I would describe virality as as a body of knowledge that exists at the confluence of psychology, web analytics, and engineering. Because it's all these three things that come together to make you understand what is it in your product that will actually give you viral growth. Okay, so moving on. So if I were to kind of put it in a more crude way and put it in a different way, so what I'm trying to say is that virality is actually marketing that is built into your product. And if you are successful in having virality, you actually may not need marketing, especially at the initial stages of your product, right? And this is what I think companies like SlideShare and YouTube have been successful is doing, is that when they are building the product itself, they are thinking about how the product will market itself right at the time of conceptualizing the product. Because if you look at the traditional model of marketing, marketing is about getting to new users. And the thesis was earlier that you first build a product, and then you figure out how you're going to market it. In contrast to that, in virality, what is happening is that you start thinking about marketing right at the time when you conceptualize the product. So, and if you're able to do it successfully, then what you've done is that it's marketing built into the product, right? So at a place like SlideShare, for example, I think we've been successful in doing this, and we did not have a marketing team till very late into SlideShare. We didn't have anybody in marketing till the time we were, almost 6 or 7 years after we started. Okay, so let me stop for a second. I think I'll need to adjust something. Yeah, okay. So I think there are some products, there's some questions that are being asked here, and I can maybe take one of them right now. So are the slides visible, first of all? I think somebody is saying that the slides are not visible. I want to make sure that the slides are visible. Okay, so I think Dwarka is saying I'm not able to hear the audio. Can you hear the audio now? Okay, so I think one of the questions that is being asked is what makes the product viral? And I'm actually going to be talking about that in the next few minutes. And so that's coming right along. And the other question that is being asked is that, is it the marketing or the product? I'm not sure I could understand what the question was actually. So anyway, so let me move on here. So I think, there are different ways in which different applications or companies have leveraged virality. And I would say the one of the best examples, or one of the earliest examples of virality, was what happened with the IM clients, where, for example, a Facebook Messenger or a Skype, you can only use to converse with somebody else if that person has a Messenger or a Skype installed as well. So it's kind of called the network effect virality. But basically, what you are saying is that that product is usable only if there are multiple people who have that product. So by definition itself, the product is built to kind of spread from one to the other. Okay. What you see on Facebook and on Twitter, the virality is achieved through the newsfeed, which is kind of leveraging the social graph that people have. At LinkedIn, I would say one of the biggest viral channels that LinkedIn has used successfully is actually emails. And a big part of the LinkedIn traffic actually comes via emails. On SlideShare and on YouTube, I think what we have been able to do successfully for our virality is essentially the use of widgets. What happened when SlideShare launched was that people had presentations that they had given at conferences, and there was no means of putting those presentations on the internet. So one of the great things that happened for us is that the moment we launched and people realized that there is now a way of putting those presentations on the internet, people started using SlideShare. And when they put it on SlideShare, we designed the product in a way that we got them into the site, we made them upload the files. We quickly converted it, and we immediately after the conversion, we gave them the embed code so that they could take that presentation and go and embed it on their own blogs, right? So when that happened, the uploaders were happy because they got their presentation and they wanted to put it on their blogs. But they actually were kind of helping SlideShare spread further because anybody on their blog who was seeing that presentation was actually clicking the link and coming back to SlideShare. So we kind of regard these widgets and these embeds that you see from SlideShare and from YouTube all over the web. They are basically like, our virality. They are our free marketing. And we provide a service to people to use SlideShare for free, but they in turn are actually helping SlideShare spread further. So the widgets are a very core part of our viral strategy, and our entire product design has been kind of aligned towards getting people to, as quickly as possible, get hold of this embed code and go and put it on their blogs or social networks or Twitter. I can share some data. Almost 30% of SlideShare content is actually viewed outside our website. So it's viewed on Twitter, on Facebook, on blogs, or things like that. So there are different, as the slide shows, different companies have used different means to go viral. Okay, they are visible. Okay. Okay, I think I'm just reading the questions that are coming in, and most people can see the video and the audio, so I think that's good. Okay, great. So let me move on from here. So now this is a little bit, specific. So I just slow down here and make sure that I, don't confuse people. So there is this thing called the viral coefficient, and it's kind of, it comes from mathematics. But maths is often very scary, and I'm personally very scared of maths as well. So I'll try to explain it in the simplest possible way. Is that, think of viral coefficient as asking this question: is that every time a new person joins your service, can you use, or can you kind of create conditions so that that new users gives you additional users, right? So the question being asked is that for every new user who joins your platform, does that person get you another additional user or not? And the viral platforms are those that have actually a high viral coefficient, which means that for every new user joining, they have kind of successfully, designed and built the product in a way that, new users will come because of that one single user. And I'll explain with an example. So it can be shown mathematically that if the viral coefficient, if this number is less than 1, what happens is that you grow initially, and after some time you hit a ceiling. And it can also be shown in the same way that if the viral coefficient is greater than 1, then essentially what you're doing is that your growth is unbounded. And here the reference is to a perpetual motion machine. So think perpetual motion machine. Think if you are able to achieve a viral coefficient greater than 1, then you are essentially talking of limitless unbounded growth. Having said that, I must caution that getting a viral coefficient greater than 1 is pretty much impossible. So the platforms that I talked about and the platforms that have done this successfully, I don't think that their viral coefficients are greater than 1, but they have pretty high viral coefficients. And I'll explain this with an example. So here is a hypothetical situation, and this is actually, I made this presentation about 4 or 5 years back, so that's why it has social networks of that era. So imagine a situation where we are kind of considering 3 social networks. One is Orkut, one is Facebook, and the third is MySpace. And each of them starts with 100 users in the first time period. And we've kind of, in an Excel sheet, and you can go back and do this yourself. This is very simple actually. What you can do is that you can plot the progression of these networks over, let's say, 20 time periods. And what's happening here is that you've assumed that, Orkut has a viral coefficient of 0.6, Facebook has a viral coefficient of 0.9, and MySpace has a viral coefficient of 1.2. Okay, and you can do the maths there, is that every time, so a viral coefficient of 0.6 means that for every new user that comes in, that user gives you 0.6 additional users. So if you see, Orkut in the first time period is 1,000, in the second time period it is 1,600, which means it's a starting 1,000 and 600 additional users. Whereas for Facebook it is 1,000 plus 900 additional users. For MySpace it is 2,200. And if you just continue with this logic for about 20 time periods, you'll see that both in the case of Orkut and Facebook, they grow to a certain stage and then they stop. But whereas in the case of MySpace, because viral coefficient has been taken at greater than 1, it is actually unbounded growth. So I hope this is not too scary. I just don't want to confuse people. But the key takeaway from this slide is that if you can have a high viral coefficient, it can actually give you long-term growth. It can kind of have it can be something like a perpetual motion machine, and I think that successful companies are those that have kind of designed the product and built it in a way and engineered it so that they can have okay, I'm getting an alert that the webinar has reached the maximum number of attendees. Okay, anyway, I think I can continue. One second. Okay. Okay, I think I'm getting a little bit of
Yeah, Amit, you can continue. I have closed that message.
Okay, got it. Okay, thanks. Right. So that's about the viral coefficient. And are there any questions about the viral coefficient at this stage that you would want me to answer? Okay. I somehow
Amit, there is
maybe I can take the.
Yeah, sorry, there's a question asked by Disha. What is the realistic viral coefficient social networking platforms work on?
Yeah, actually, it's while I have explained the concept in a couple of slides, it's pretty much impossible to calculate your viral coefficient, right? So the truth is that I don't know, but my guess is that nothing comes close to a viral coefficient of 1. I would imagine that something like SlideShare would have a viral coefficient somewhere in the region of 0.2 or 0.3, and maybe something like a Facebook would be in the 0.8s or the 0.9s, but a viral coefficient of 1 is pretty much very impossible to achieve. So SlideShare is not greater than 1. I wish it was. Somebody is asking. Right, and one of the caveats here, and I must caution people, is that I've tried to explain this concept to people earlier as well, and sometimes I found people getting caught in the mathematics of this. So my request would be that you should understand the concept. You should have the key takeaways. Don't get caught up in the mathematics of how this is doing. You might still just pull out an Excel sheet and do this exercise that I have explained. It's actually very simple, because it'll just make your conviction stronger that when you see it. But don't spend a lot of time trying to go and estimate what your viral coefficient is. I think that's kind of not the purpose behind this exercise. So let me move on from here. So one of the ways to kind of think about virality is that remember I talked about how virality is about getting new users, and one of the key things that you do in case of virality is to identify what are the distribution channels through which you are going to acquire new users. And I'll subsequently come in a few slides later, I'll talk about the difference between channels and features. But at this stage, I think the takeaway should be that for virality, you need to identify what are the different distribution channels that are possible for your product, and then kind of choose which is the best one. And the different channels could be, for example, invite a friend could be one thing. Again, this is something that LinkedIn has used very successfully. Back in the in sometime around 2007, 2008, there was a whole class of applications like Slide and Rockyu, which initially led they went away, but they were acquired by Google. They were very successful in using invite a friend for their virality. Newsfeed is something that we have seen definitely, with case of Facebook, they've been hugely successful in kind of having virality through the newsfeed. In fact, the newsfeed, the way Facebook does it is mind-boggling. There's a whole, big engineering product design teams, and all they are doing is just to build the newsfeed. I explained in our case, in case of SlideShare and of YouTube, that one of the viral channels that we have used successfully is embeds and widgets. You could have emails, you could have notifications. So there are various distribution channels that are possible. The question that you have to ask yourself is that which are these channels which have a good chance of giving me new users? And how you are going to go about looking at these channels, I'll explain in the next few slides. So I'll stop at this slide, and this slide kind of, it actually explains something which is very simple. That how would you kind of look at different channels? So let's say you start from the top left part of this static diagram. So there is a user who is shown a call to action, right? Now, when you show a call to action, you're going to have some people accept that CTA, and there are going to be some people who are reject that CTA, right? And what you're trying to do here is the people who accept the call to action, let's say the call to action is invite your friends. Now out of that, this is shown to 100 people, and X percentage of those actually invited the friends, which means that they sent out the email for inviting the friends. And of the emails that were sent, a Y percentage of people actually accepted the invite rate. Okay, so what you can do is that you can just trace the steps. You can start with the number of people who were shown the CTA, the number of people who clicked, the number of people who after clicking and receiving the email they accepted, and finally you'll know how many new users did you get out of it. So this is a very simple explanation of how do you map a viral loop. So this is called mapping the viral loop. So you have identified a loop. In the case of this example, the loop is invite a friend. And now your task is to basically map out the different elements of the viral loop and measure what is happening at each stage. And what you can do here is it is always very useful to do a little bit of A/B testing here, because what you will realize is that remember I started by saying that virality exists at the confluence of web analytics and user behavior and psychology. So it's very possible that when you are building out a viral distribution channel, then you can do some A/B testing and you can figure out what exactly is the flow which is giving you the maximum output. And there are some very good A/B testing tools. I mean, Visual Website Optimizer is one which is great. Kissmetrics is another which is great. Optimizely is another which is very useful. And these the great thing about these tools is that it's actually become very easy to do A/B testing. When we used to do it earlier on, when we launched SlideShare, A/B testing was so much more difficult. But now that these tools exist and these tools have made it so easy. So basically what you're trying to do is that you can look at a channel, you can look at the flow, you can create a separate variant of it. You can have both variant A and B running at the same time. You measure the drop-offs. in each of those two variants, and you try to see which of them is giving you higher throughput. Okay, so that's where the role of metrics comes in. And it's worth pointing out that this is a constant iterative process. Tuning the while loop, as this is called, is something that will continue, and you will have to keep doing again and again so that you can grow. But the good thing here is that if you're tracking the right metrics, this is something which is measurable. So this is not something which is based on impressionist things or qualitative factors. This is something which is hardcore number driven. You can actually have a certain flow in your product, and you can measure the efficiency of the flow, or you can change the flow and do an A/B test, and you will have a very clear and a definitive answer to which flow is better. So it always helps to be very data driven, to be very metrics oriented when you are trying to design and optimize these while loops. So I come back to this point that I touched upon earlier. So, and this is about that the viral channels, incidentally, are not the same as features. The core distinction between viral channels and features is that these channels basically get you new users, whereas features actually keep users engaged. And some features can get you new users, so I think that don't take it literally. But I think the core function of a channel is to actually, it's a source of new users for you, where features are basically meant to kind of once the users come in, they keep engaged and they keep using. And some features may be viral, some features may not be viral. And the other thing which is worth pointing out is that there is definitely a life cycle kind of an effect that you see with these viral channels. These viral channels will decay over a period of time, and because what happens is that users get conditioned to it, and after some time, just like in advertising you have banner blindness. People click on ads, and after some time they get immune to it, and they just kind of gloss it over. A similar kind of an effect happened in viral channels, is that if you just depend too much on a viral channel, then that feature sooner there'll be something about that medium or something about that channel which will make it go away. And we've seen this in case of SlideShare, for example. When we launched at that time, the embeds on the blogs were our biggest source of virality, right? But after some time, what started happening is that blogging itself started undergoing changes. Twitter and Facebook and all these, they became more popular. So a big part of blogging got converted into microblogging. And this actually hit us very hard at SlideShare because, a lot of our distribution was happening through blogging. And if the blogs themselves started, kind of blogging as a phenomenon started going down, we were kind of, we felt a similar, life cycle effect there. But we had to quickly change tracks, and we said, okay, so if blogging is changing, what do you think is happening? And we realized that was a time when, Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter started growing. So we started focusing not just on blogs, but we started focusing on Facebook embedding, on Twitter embedding. And initially when on Facebook or Twitter, they did not allow the embeds to show up there, right? The first version of sharing on these platforms was when you could just insert a link and people could click the link and they'll come to SlideShare. But later on, now on Twitter or Facebook, you can actually embed the entire thing and it can play in the newsfeed. So that's an example of how, a viral channel that was working very well for SlideShare kind of decayed, and it was kind of, it metamorphed, it changed into something which was different. And so much so that I think it's always advisable that, if you're kind of slightly maturing as a product, if your viral channel is maturing, then you should always be on the lookout for other new channels because channels will die, channels will kind of go away at some point in time, and so you need to be on the lookout for newer options. Okay, so that's where I come to the first part of my presentation, and What I'll do next and take about 5-7 minutes is to talk a little bit about what SlideShare has done, a few things where which has helped us go viral. Yeah. So let me kind of stop and reinforce the concept of virality once again. As I started in the beginning of the presentation, virality is a single-minded focus on acquiring new users. And the emphasis here is on the word single-minded focus. Because when you do something in a single-minded way, you have to make choices. And product design is all about making choices. And choices are, they almost always involve compromises. And this is what you observe in product design on the internet as well, is that when you make choices, you bias your design in some direction. Which means that, you win some and you lose some, right? But if the intent is to, kind of grow via virality, then what I would recommend is that you should bias your product and design towards getting new users. And when you do that, there are some other things that you'll probably have to let go. There are some other things that will have to be de-emphasized, and I'll explain what I mean via a few examples. So on SlideShare, for example, both on SlideShare and YouTube, people can watch the entire presentation while they are logged out. And this has been one of the compromise decisions that we have made. And it has kind of, as I said, you win some, you lose some. I mean, this decision exactly, shows what we have won and what we have lost. So what we've won is that the fact that the content is available in a logged out state has been great for our virality. It has been great for our distribution. It means that people can just come on the site and very quickly, without much of a without any problem, they can quickly view the content, and they can fulfill whatever need they came for that presentation. But so that's great for virality. That's great for distribution. But what it does is that if you've given out the content in a logged out state, then there is actually little reason for people to log in. And so logged in engagement is something which suffers. And logged in engagement is something that once you start, figuring on your monetization model, then you need more information about users. You need a larger number of logged in users, and you need more information about the users. So that was the stage. What happened at SlideShare is that we always allowed logged in viewing. It was great for our virality. We could spread ourselves a lot. We were getting very fast distribution. But at the same time, we had kind of created a situation wherein not many people were logging into SlideShare. And even the people that were logging into SlideShare, we didn't have profile information for them. So those users were not that useful. So it's kind of the trade-off that I explained, is that we did something which kind of helped us in some way, but in some other way it kind of took away something from SlideShare. But yet, I mean, if I were to kind of look back in hindsight and say that did we do the right thing, I would say yes. I mean, I think we did the right thing, because if we had not got our virality right, the fact is that today in 2014, you guys will not be logging into this webinar to listen to me. SlideShare would probably not have even kind of existed beyond a few years. The very fact that we are growing and we are relevant and we are now part of LinkedIn, I think the core reason is that because we got our virality right. So you come back to the paradigm that product decisions are about making choices, and choices involve making compromises. Now you have to kind of make a judicious call. You have to put on your thinking hat and say, where is it that I'm ready to make this compromise? So in case of logged out content viewing, we made a compromise, and I think we did the right call there. And incidentally, I mean, I can also share this, that this was actually one of the reasons why when the LinkedIn acquisition offer came to us, it was actually very, we were supportive of it, because LinkedIn is a company which has a lot of profile information about users. And we were a company which had very little profile information about users. So our thinking was that if you become a part of LinkedIn, then automatically we get access to so much information about users, which will be useful from a monetization perspective, which will be useful for customizing the user experience. And I think that is what we are doing at this stage of our product plans, that we are actually integrating more and more with LinkedIn so that we can use the tremendous information that LinkedIn has, so that we can actually take that information and make the SlideShare experience better for users. So this was point number one. Okay, I'm again getting a alert here. I'll stop this. The second point is something that you might have felt if you have used SlideShare, is that we don't allow any transitions. We don't allow any embedded audio or video. And you can do these things in PowerPoint, and PowerPoint has a lot of these transitions that you'll see the slides flying in from the left and from the right, and text zooming in and out, and all these kind of things that you can do. And you can also embed an audio and video. And our thinking right from the day we were building SlideShare was that we want SlideShare to be loading very fast. We want the pages to load fast, we want the slides to load fast, and anything that kind of stops the pages from loading faster, we are not going to do it. And why were we kind of looking at fast loading? Because there is, on the internet, fast wins. There is research which actually shows, and I think Google has done some tremendous research here, and they've shared the results of the research, is that for every 20 milliseconds of more loading time, they have calculated how much is the loss in terms of user experience and revenue. And while that data point, and you can go on the internet, you can search for that, and while that applies to Google, I think the broader principle applies to everyone on the internet, is that if you really want to grow, if you really want to be something which is used on a very large scale, you've got to kind of keep things very fast. You got to keep the user experience loading really, really fast, and then you should be willing to make the compromises. So the compromise that we made here is that we didn't allow transitions, we didn't allow the audio and video, and what that did was that it basically kind of created a situation where all these years we always have user feedback, people coming to us and saying, SlideShare doesn't have transitions, I want transitions, and there's a bunch of these other sites, Slideify, SlideSnap, AuthorStream, SlideRocket, SlideBoom, SpeakerDeck. They're all kind of, they've tried to kind of address one of these problems. So they have transitions, they allow video, they allow audio. So in a way, by choosing to not have these features, we actually created our own competitors. We created a mini industry of, SlideShare wannabes. So you can again, go back and see the, the win-lose situation here is that you win something, but you lose something as well. The next point is something which is, again, you might have felt, and so one of our thesis at the time of launching SlideShare was that will people gather around presentations as a category? Because SlideShare was launched in 2006. And that was a time when video was becoming very, very popular on the internet. YouTube had just got acquired by Google. YouTube had started in 2005. So when we launched, the obvious comparison point for us was video. And there's something very raw and very sexy about video. There's it is a continuous stream that PowerPoint lacked. So we kind of were under pressure that how are we going to compete, and how are we going to make something which is viral, which people like, and which is going to spread on the internet if everyone is going to compare SlideShare to the video format. And because we knew that PowerPoint does not have as much inherent appeal as a video has, what we did was that we kind of, biased the design towards more of sharing. So this is a UI that was there on SlideShare till some time back. You will see that, there are these left-hand chiclets that are there for sharing on Twitter, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. And it used to make the page look very cluttered. And our designers and our engineering team, they internally used to refer to it as the Formula One or the NASCAR UI. Because on Formula One you see these big, bold, advertisements splashed all over the car. So the analogy was being drawn to, we are making our main page on SlideShare like a Formula One car and NASCAR. And there used to be jokes inside the office about, why are we doing this? And I think the answer to that was that, because we felt that PowerPoint as a medium was inherently less viral than video. So the UI was in some way trying to compensate for this shortcoming of the medium. And, if you go to SlideShare now, I think, we've kind of toned down a lot. You don't have this NASCAR Formula One UI now. But again, that's a call we can take now when we've kind of grown beyond a certain scale. So, and this is also something that I would say gave birth to a bunch of competitors for us, because there were other competitors to SlideShare who said, okay, if you want to share presentations without the mess, come to us. So again, it's an example of, you win some and you lose some. You've actually created a little bit of a mini competition for yourselves because of the choice you made. But look, if I were to again look back in hindsight, I think we made the right call at that time because we needed to be a viral platform. And the last point here is again something which was a compromise decision aimed at virality. So when people uploads or content on SlideShare is like its oxygen. It is what drives the entire system. So when we were building the product, we were thinking that, okay, how can we remove all barriers to the uploading of content on SlideShare? How can we make that process as fast and as seamless and as welcoming to people as possible? And that was the reason why we never had any upload limits on SlideShare. It was always kind of free. What used to happen, and this is uploading interface that we have recently removed. I think about last year we removed this particular interface. But what this did was it was an auto publish upload flow, wherein a user could come to the upload page, and you could just upload the file in one click. And after that, the interface does the entire thing. You could just go away and forget about it, and we'll take that file, we'll upload it to the servers. We did not force people to give us, the title, the tags, the categories, and it was an intentional call because we were thinking that, okay, we'll probably, miss out on a little bit of the metadata, but we just want to make the uploading experience so fast that people don't have to wait for it. So the win here was that basically, we got a lot of content, and what we lost in this process is that we had a lot of content which did not have any metadata. It did not have proper titles, it did not have proper tags, it did not have categories, and hence, when we started doing personalization and we started doing recommendations, I think that turned out to be a problem because a big part of our corpus was, content without this metadata. But I would say again, in hindsight, this was probably the right call to make because it helped us get a lot of content in the first place. And now, this interface has been removed. Now we have an interface where the interface will ask you and it will stop you if you don't specify tags and categories. It'll stop the upload process unless and until you do that. So this was another example of, what we did to kind of, bias the system towards virality. So I think I'm at the end of my presentation now. That's all I have. And, I'm happy to take questions.
Yeah, thank you, Amit, for sharing this valuable information. So we have questions. Shall I read the questions or?
Yeah, I think I'm able to view the questions now better. Let me start from the bottom actually.
Okay.
So somebody is asking, can you, yeah, I can read the question. So I'll read it out and I'll try to answer. Okay.
All right.
Okay. So somebody, Siddharth is saying, can you share the slides? So I'll be uploading the slides to Digital Vidya and I think they'll help distribute it. The next question is, you are talking about SlideShare. How can a simple gadget, solar mobile charger, be delivered to 75 million on a zero budget? How can, okay, so let me read this again, make sure I understand this. How can a simple gadget, solar mobile charger, be delivered to 75 million? Okay, I don't think, offhand, I'm sorry, I'll not be able to, give you a marketing plan for this. It is also possible that, not every product is kind of, lends itself to the concept of virality. But I think the general principle that I explained, you should think along those lines. Because what you are trying to say is that every time somebody is using a product, how or what do you do? What are the conditions you create so that, that person spreads that product or spreads that idea to somebody else? So let's say if I were to just kind of, throw something out there. So you're talking of a solar mobile charger. So you should try to think of what is the value that the solar mobile charger is giving to the end user. It is obviously a functional value. There could be other values as well. It could make people think about, okay, I am being more environmentally conscious. People want to maybe look environmentally conscious in front of their friends and, relatives and in front of their network. So maybe you could capitalize on that. When every time somebody who buys a solar charger, maybe you could create conditions so that these people talk about it on social media. They share that they have kind of, used your product. Maybe you could send them an email with a snapshot of your product that they can easily share. So think along those lines, and I think you'll be able to figure out something that works for you. And also, I would say the 75 million that you talked about, I mean, must put that in perspective. It did not happen overnight. It's taken us 8 years. So pardon me on that. The 75 million was a little bit of just smart marketing on my part for getting the webinar across. But you can start in a small way and build yourself as time grows. You could 75 million is also built of 1 million and 2 million and 5 million and 10 million along the way. So the emphasis should be to start off small, but figure out what is working for you and then kind of drive it. So let me pick up some more questions. So one of the questions is that why do you use PowerPoint and not SlideShare to show the presentation? I would have loved to use SlideShare, but I'm actually using this GoToMeeting that Digital Vidya is using because SlideShare unfortunately doesn't have these Q&A and this live chat and all. That's the reason. One question is, how would you engage with logged in users? How would you have engaged in logged in users? So I think the point that I made about logged in users was that because the content was being given out in a logged out stage, there was little need, or there was lesser need for users to log into SlideShare. And if they had logged into SlideShare, then we could have kind of got them to go to their profile, fill out that profile, and then we would have been able to use that to give them more personalized recommendations. So let's say the user is somebody. I'll give you an example. So let's say a user is a working professional who's working in the field of project management. Now this user comes to SlideShare. He or she watches a presentation about project management but is logged out, right? So after watching the presentation, he or she goes away. But unfortunately, SlideShare now doesn't know who this person was and what this person came to SlideShare for. Instead of logged out, if the user was logged in and we knew that this person, because in the profile you can ask people what are your interests and what is your industry, and from there we could capture this information that this user is interested in project management. Then we can actually recommend content via emails. We can recommend content on the interface about project management, and they'll find it more useful. So one of the questions is, how would you prioritize at an early stage of a product growth? Engage a smaller user base or grow user base first and later start driving engagement? That's a great question. I think Kunal has asked this, and so basically what you are asking is, Kunal, is it distribution or is it engagement that you should focus on? And I think the honest answer is that you probably have to do both. But if I were to kind of build another product again, what I would do is that I would first get both distribution and engagement to a certain scale. And once I have a baseline level of engagement, I wouldn't focus too much on it. I would actually focus more on distribution. But I'll make sure that I get to a baseline level of engagement, because that engagement is important, because that is the core value that your product is offering. But at the same time, once you have that baseline level of engagement, you need distribution. And I can share with you that I talk to a lot of startups, I see a lot of products, and if I were to kind of get onto a least common denominator, what is the single biggest challenge that every startup has? I think the single biggest challenge that every startup, after creating the product, it's a problem of distribution. It's a problem of people getting to know what you've built. It's a problem of people to come back. It's a problem to, today you have 100 users, you need to go from 100, 200, 1,000, 5,000. So to summarize, I think you need a baseline level of engagement, but beyond that, I think you should focus on distribution. One question is from Uditya Paul, is, are there any success stories from the auto industry? I wouldn't know about the auto industry much, but I recently was on a panel at TiCon, wherein somebody from the auto industry was part of the panel, and I think this was the CEO of Car Dekho, and I think they have been very successful in doing some kind of SEO to drive their virality, and they had a big SEO team. They did actually something which is not very common, which is to have a big team of content people, and part of their virality has been driven by SEO. But beyond that, I don't have any context of auto companies. So there's one question from Usha, is, how can a startup focusing on services for SMEs, which has recently started website, can market on social media, bring in clients, say for example in LinkedIn? Okay, so let me read this again. How can a startup focusing on services for SMEs, which has recently started website, can get into social media? So I think the situation is that the startup is doing services for SMEs and they want to use social media. So I think one of the things that is happening with social media, and I see this increasingly, is that different channels are being used by different classes of people or companies. So Facebook is something which is obviously more on the personal side, but Twitter is something that is being used because Twitter is by definition a broadcasting medium. So it is being used by a lot of businesses. LinkedIn obviously is a professional network, so there is a lot of LinkedIn usage that companies are having. And so what I would do in this case, for example, the startup which is working for SMEs, is that if there are any success stories that you've done for SMEs, I would convert that into a case study. And I would do content marketing with that case study. I'll put it on. You can actually, content marketing is something that goes strongly on SlideShare as well. But I would create a case study and I'll put it on Twitter, I'll put it on LinkedIn, I'll put it on SlideShare. On SlideShare, for example, we have a lead generation program. You can actually use that, and that can give you an additional source of leads. So that is the way you could utilize social media for SMEs.
Amit, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you. I think we are already ahead of the time and we have loads of questions. So folks, those whose questions are not yet answered, I'll just forward these questions to our content delivery team, and I'll try my best to answer your question by the next end of the day. And we will also be sharing recording of today's session with every one of you. So Amit, if you want to pick any one question, you can pick, and then we will be having one poll. I'll just initiate the poll, and in the meantime you can pick up any question and answer. So folks, like today's webinar, we conduct regular trainings for digital marketing, and I want to invite you for our digital marketing course. I want to just initiate one poll on your computer screen. You can see this poll. The subject is, would you like to participate in our 6-month digital marketing course? And then there are responses, yes, no, or maybe. I request you to please choose the option which you think is correct for you. And in the meantime, Amit will pick up any one question, and then we'll complete this webinar. Yeah, Amit,
okay, great.
Yeah.
So this is the last question, and this question is from Juhi. And the question is, you haven't spoken about viral videos. Is that a good way to achieve virality? So absolutely. I mean, viral videos, videos are a great way of achieving virality for a bunch of reasons actually. So one is, as I explained, that video, the format itself is very appealing. It's a continuous stream, and there's something very raw and very engaging about video. We've always actually felt this at SlideShare, is that we wish that presentations had the kind of emotional connect or the kind of an emotional appeal that a video can do. And actually, you might not be aware, SlideShare now has videos as well. And going into LinkedIn, actually we want to focus more and more on professional videos. And the difference between presentations and videos is that we think that videos have a professional, they have a they make a personal connect much better than what presentations do. Now about virality on videos, I think one of the things to notice is that YouTube videos that really go viral, you notice that they typically tend to be anything between 40 seconds to 1 minute 20 seconds, so it's never longer than that. A lot of videos are made professionally, but sometimes you also have private, personal, just casual videos. I'm sure you would have seen Charlie Bit My Finger. It's one of the oldest videos, and it has like I don't know how many millions of views. So having a video which is short, which is tailor-made, especially in business situations, I would say that for business purposes, casual videos may not work. You would probably need a professional video, so it might make sense to take the services of a professional videographer or a video company that makes these videos, and try to achieve virality, because videos are great. I mean, we've all seen what's happened with Gangnam Style, and in India, Kolavari was again something, and Kolavari was actually for those who may not be aware, people thought that it is something which has just grown so big on its own, but it was a very targeted marketing campaign. It was done, the team which did it, they spent a lot of time, working out how to do it. So that's what I would suggest about videos. And it's been great. I mean, let me end by saying that it's been great, and I can see that there's so many questions. I've probably only been able to touch maybe about 30-40% of these questions. If it's possible, I'll just link up with digital Vidya folks and try to answer some of these questions, or at least point towards links or articles that you may read. And these slides will be shared with you, and these slides will also be there on SlideShare. So make sure to kind of, as I started off by saying, that understand the core concept behind virality, and then you need to put on your thinking hat and go back to your products and think, how can I utilize this concept for growing my product? So thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you, Amit. Thank you for sharing this valuable knowledge, and I request everyone, I have just few time left, so please feel free to mail us all the questions which still has not been answered, or if you have any other question, you can mail us at info@wizlabs.com, and please visit SlideShare. We have uploaded lots of content for digital marketing there. So thank you, everyone, and thank you, Amit. I'm ending this session now.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye-bye.